The morning sun cast a golden glow across the manicured gardens of Kensington Palace, as Catherine, Princess of Wales, sat quietly in her private study. She had always found solace in the early hours when the world seemed peaceful, and the weight of royal duties felt lighter on her shoulders. Today, however, something extraordinary filled her heart with a warmth she hadn't experienced in months. William entered the room carrying 2 steaming cups of tea, a tradition they had maintained throughout their marriage despite their increasingly busy schedules. His eyes immediately found hers, and the silent communication that had developed between them over the years spoke volumes. The secret they had been keeping for weeks was finally ready to be shared with the world. The past year had been challenging for the royal family. Public scrutiny had intensified, and the pressure of maintaining their roles while raising 3 young children had sometimes felt overwhelming. George, Charlotte, and Louis had grown so much, each developing their own unique personalities, that brought joy and occasional chaos to the palace walls. Catherine often marveled at how quickly time passed, watching her children transform from babies into thoughtful young people. William placed the tea beside her and settled into the comfortable armchair they had positioned near the large window overlooking the gardens. They had spent countless hours in this room, discussing everything from state matters to their children's homework struggles. It was their sanctuary, away from cameras and public expectations. The decision they had made together wasn't taken lightly. Months of private conversations, consultations with trusted advisors, and careful consideration of the timing had led them to this moment. Catherine remembered the exact evening when William first suggested the idea. They had been walking through the palace gardens after dinner, the children finally asleep, when he stopped near the rose bushes her late mother-in-law had planted years before. The connection to Diana felt particularly meaningful in their choice. Catherine had often felt the presence of the woman she never met, but whose legacy continued to shape their approach to royal life. Diana's compassion, her dedication to causes close to her heart, and her desire to modernize the monarchy had become guiding principles for Catherine and William's own journey. Their private secretary had been the first to know about their plans. Sarah, who had worked with the family for several years, understood the significance of what they were proposing. Her initial reaction was one of surprise, followed quickly by enthusiasm as she realized the positive impact this could have on both the royal family and the nation. The logistics had been complex. Coordinating with various departments, ensuring security protocols were updated, and managing the media strategy required careful planning. Catherine had insisted on being involved in every detail, her background in art history proving unexpectedly useful in some of the aesthetic decisions they needed to make. William had been her constant support throughout the planning process. His military training had instilled in him a methodical approach to problem-solving that complemented Catherine's creative vision perfectly. Together, they had created something that felt authentically theirs, while honoring the traditions they were bound to uphold. The children had been told about the plans in age-appropriate ways. George, as the eldest, understood more about the significance of their decision. His questions had been thoughtful and mature, reminding both parents of the responsibility that would one day rest on his shoulders. Charlotte had been excited about the possibilities, her natural curiosity leading to dozens of questions about how things would work. Louis, still young enough to focus mainly on the fun aspects, had simply been happy to see his parents so animated about something. Catherine's parents had been among the first family members to learn about the decision. Her mother's practical nature had immediately focused on the potential challenges, while her father had expressed quiet pride in what his daughter and son-in-law were undertaking. Their support meant everything to Catherine, who had always valued their grounded perspective on her extraordinary life. The extended royal family's reactions had been mixed but ultimately supportive. King Charles had expressed both pride and slight concern about the public reception, while other family members had offered their assistance in whatever way might be needed. The sense of unity within the family had been strengthening over recent years, and this project felt like another step in that direction. Media speculation had been growing for weeks, though none of the rumors came close to the actual truth. Catherine found it amusing how creative journalists could be when working with limited information. Some of the theories she had read were so elaborate that she and William had laughed about them over dinner. The timing felt perfect in ways that went beyond mere scheduling. The nation needed something positive to focus on, something that would remind people of the values and traditions that bound them together, while looking forward to the future. Catherine believed deeply that their announcement would serve that purpose. As she sipped her tea and watched William review the final documents one more time, Catherine felt a profound sense of gratitude. Their marriage had weathered public scrutiny, family challenges, and the enormous pressure of their roles. Yet here they were, stronger than ever, about to embark on something that felt like the most important thing they had ever done together. The palace staff had been preparing for weeks, their excitement barely contained despite their professional demeanor. Even the most experienced courtiers seemed energized by what was coming. Catherine had noticed spring in people's steps, hushed conversations that stopped when she entered rooms, and smiles that suggested shared anticipation. Tomorrow would change everything. The carefully planned announcement would ripple across social media, traditional news outlets, and conversations in homes across the United Kingdom and beyond. Catherine knew that once the news broke, their lives would shift once again, but this time toward something that felt entirely positive. William looked up from his papers and caught her watching him. The smile they shared contained years of shared dreams, challenges overcome together, and the quiet confidence that came from knowing they were making the right choice. Tomorrow, the world would understand why Kensington Palace was preparing to delight the nation with the most heartwarming news about Kate and William that anyone could have imagined. The historic announcement came on a crisp Tuesday morning that would forever be remembered in royal history. Catherine stood before the elegant mirror in her dressing room, adjusting the sapphire necklace that had belonged to Diana. The choice of jewelry was deliberate, a subtle tribute to the woman whose memory continued to inspire their decisions. The press conference had been scheduled for 11 o'clock in the palace's grand ballroom, a room that had witnessed countless significant moments in royal history. Media representatives from around the world had gathered, their cameras and equipment creating a buzz of anticipation that could be felt throughout the building. Security had been heightened, not due to any threats, but simply because of the unprecedented interest in what the Prince and Princess of Wales were about to reveal. William adjusted his tie one final time before joining Catherine in the corridor that led to the ballroom. They had rehearsed their announcement several times, but both knew that the emotion of the moment would make their words feel fresh and genuine. The written speech in William's pocket was more of a safety net than a necessity. They had lived this decision so thoroughly that speaking about it felt as natural as breathing. The announcement itself was breathtaking in its simplicity and profound in its implications. Standing together before the assembled media, Catherine and William revealed their decision to establish the Diana Memorial Foundation for Children's Mental Health, a comprehensive initiative that would revolutionize how young people across the Commonwealth received emotional and psychological support. The foundation would operate from a newly renovated wing of Kensington Palace, creating a working space where Catherine and William could be hands-on in their involvement while maintaining their other royal duties. More significantly, they announced their intention to dedicate a substantial portion of their time to personally visiting schools, community centers, and youth organizations across the United Kingdom and Commonwealth nations. William spoke first, his voice steady but filled with emotion as he described their vision. The foundation would not simply fund existing programs but would create entirely new approaches to children's mental health. They had spent months consulting with leading psychologists, educators, and young people themselves to understand what was truly needed. Catherine's portion of the announcement focused on the practical elements that made the initiative so groundbreaking. Every child in the United Kingdom would have access to mental health resources through their school, regardless of location or economic circumstances. Mobile units would travel to remote areas, while digital platforms would ensure that help was available around the clock. The most surprising element of their announcement was the personal commitment they were making. Beginning in the autumn, Catherine and William would spend 1 week each month traveling together to different communities, working directly with children and families. They would eat lunch in school cafeterias, participate in playground activities, and attend evening community meetings where parents could voice their concerns and suggestions. The media response was immediate and overwhelmingly positive. Veteran royal correspondents who had covered decades of palace announcements described this as the most significant royal initiative in a generation. The combination of personal involvement, practical solutions, and the emotional connection to Diana's legacy created a story that resonated far beyond traditional royal watchers. Social media exploded with support and gratitude. Parents shared stories of their own children's struggles with anxiety, depression, and other mental health challenges. Teachers posted about the urgent need for better resources in schools. Mental health advocates praised the royal couple for using their platform to address an issue that affected millions of families. The financial commitment was substantial, but carefully planned. The foundation would be funded through a combination of royal family contributions, government partnerships, and private donations from individuals and corporations who wanted to support the cause. Catherine and William had insisted that the majority of funds go directly to services rather than administrative costs. International reaction came swiftly from Commonwealth leaders, who praised the initiative and expressed interest in implementing similar programs in their own nations. The President of Canada called William personally to discuss how the Foundation's model could be adapted for Indigenous communities. The Prime Minister of Australia sent a formal letter expressing her government's commitment to supporting the Foundation's work. Children themselves responded with remarkable enthusiasm. Letters began arriving at the palace within hours of the announcement, many written in careful handwriting by young people who expressed gratitude for having adults who understood their struggles. One letter from a 10-year-old girl in Manchester simply said, "Thank you for caring about scared kids like me." The announcement had been timed to coincide with World Mental Health Day, adding symbolic weight to an already powerful message. Mental health organizations that had been struggling for funding and recognition suddenly found themselves part of a national conversation led by the future king and queen. Educational institutions across the country began immediately, reaching out to the Foundation's newly established offices. University researchers offered to contribute their expertise, while primary schools requested to be among the first to implement the new programs. The overwhelming response confirmed what Catherine and William had suspected. The need for their initiative was even greater than they had imagined. Behind the scenes, the palace staff worked tirelessly to manage the flood of interest and support. Phone lines were constantly busy with calls from organizations wanting to partner with the Foundation. The official website, launched simultaneously with the announcement, crashed within an hour due to unprecedented traffic. The evening news programs across the United Kingdom led with the story, featuring interviews with mental health experts who praised the royal couple's approach. Child psychologists explained how the combination of professional expertise and royal advocacy could break down barriers that had prevented many families from seeking help. William and Catherine spent the afternoon of the announcement taking calls from family members, government officials, and charity leaders. Each conversation reinforced their conviction that they had made the right choice. The support was universal, but more importantly, the enthusiasm for getting started was infectious. As the day ended, Catherine and William returned to their private apartments where their children were waiting, with dozens of questions about the day's events. George had watched the announcement on television and wanted to know when he could help with the Foundation's work. Charlotte asked if she could write letters to the children who would benefit from the programs. Louis simply wanted to know if there would be more hugs in the world because of what his parents had done. The question from Louis proved unexpectedly profound. In many ways, their foundation was indeed about creating more hugs in the world, more moments of connection, understanding, and support for children who felt alone with their struggles. That evening, as they tucked their children into bed, Catherine and William knew they had taken the first step toward changing countless young lives across the nation and beyond. The weeks following the announcement transformed Kensington Palace into a bustling center of activity, unlike anything the historic building had witnessed in decades. Catherine arrived each morning to find her desk covered with letters, proposals, and invitations from organizations across the globe. The response had exceeded every projection they had made during months of planning. Theo, renovation of the palace's east wing, progressed rapidly as architects and designers worked to create spaces that would serve the Foundation's unique needs. Catherine insisted on being involved in every decision, from the color of the walls in the children's consultation rooms to the type of furniture that would make young visitors feel comfortable rather than intimidated. William spent his days meeting with government officials, medical professionals, and education leaders who were eager to integrate the Foundation's programs into existing systems. The Department of Education had fast-tracked approval for the school-based initiatives, while the National Health Service committed to training additional counselors, specifically for the Foundation's programs. Then the first batch of recruitment for Foundation staff had drawn over 3,000 applications for 50 positions. Child psychologists, social workers, teachers, and youth advocates from across the United Kingdom and Commonwealth countries expressed interest in joining what many described as the most meaningful opportunity of their careers. Catherine particularly enjoyed the interview process, sitting down with each potential team member to understand their motivation and vision for helping children. She had developed a series of questions that revealed not just professional qualifications, but the emotional intelligence and genuine compassion required for such sensitive work. Interview stood out among all the others. Dr. Sarah Chen, a child psychologist from Edinburgh, had spent 15 years working with young people in some of Scotland's most challenging communities. When Catherine asked what had drawn her to this field, Dr. Chen shared her own story of struggling with anxiety as a child and finding help through a school counselor who changed her life trajectory. The Foundation's advisory board was taking shape with representatives from diverse backgrounds and perspectives. Catherine and William had insisted on including young people who had experienced mental health challenges themselves, believing their insights would be invaluable in shaping effective programs. Marcus Thompson, a 19-year-old from Birmingham who had overcome severe depression during his teenage years, became the youngest member of the advisory board. His first meeting with Catherine and William left a lasting impression on all three of them as he articulated the specific ways that adult support had made the difference between despair and hope in his darkest moments. The international attention continued to grow as other royal families and world leaders expressed interest in similar initiatives. The Crown Princess of Sweden visited London specifically to learn about the Foundation's model, while representatives from New Zealand's government flew in to discuss adapting the programs for Maori communities. Technology played a crucial role in the Foundation's approach, with developers creating apps and online platforms that would make mental health resources accessible to children who might be reluctant to seek help through traditional channels. Catherine spent hours testing these digital tools, ensuring they would feel friendly and approachable to young users. The mobile units that would travel to remote communities were being custom designed to feel more like comfortable living rooms than clinical spaces. Catherine had insisted that each unit include areas for creative expression, recognizing that many children would find it easier to communicate through art, music, or writing rather than direct conversation. Training programs for the Foundation's staff emphasized cultural sensitivity and recognition that mental health challenges manifested differently across various communities. William had been particularly focused on ensuring that the Foundation's approach would be effective for children from immigrant families, military families, and other groups that might face unique stressors. The Foundation's partnership with schools was developing more comprehensively than originally planned. Rather than simply adding mental health resources to existing structures, many schools were redesigning their entire approach to student well-being. Teachers were receiving training to recognize early signs of emotional distress, while playground supervisors learned techniques for helping children resolve conflicts peacefully. Letters from children continued to arrive daily, many accompanied by drawings and poems that revealed both the depth of young people's struggles and their remarkable resilience. Catherine had started a personal tradition of responding to as many letters as possible, often writing lengthy responses that acknowledged each child's specific concerns and offered encouragement. One letter that particularly moved both Catherine and William came from 8-year-old Emma in Wales, who wrote about feeling different from other children because her mind worked differently. Emma's drawing showed a small figure surrounded by dark clouds with one ray of sunshine breaking through. Her letter asked if the Foundation would help other children understand that being different wasn't the same as being wrong. The Foundation's research component was attracting attention from universities worldwide. A collaboration with Oxford University would study the long-term effects of early mental health intervention, while partnerships with institutions in Canada and Australia would examine how cultural factors influence the effectiveness of different therapeutic approaches. Corporate Partnerships were forming organically as businesses recognized the value of supporting children's mental health. A major technology company offered to provide all the foundation's digital infrastructure at no cost, while a children's book publisher committed to creating age-appropriate materials about emotional well-being. Catherine and William had begun making unannounced visits to schools and youth centers, wanting to understand firsthand the challenges their foundation would need to address. These visits often extended far beyond their scheduled times as they found themselves drawn into conversations with children and staff members who were eager to share their experiences. During one visit to a primary school in Manchester, Catherine spent an entire afternoon with a 7-year-old boy who had been too shy to join group activities. By the end of her visit, he was holding her hand and telling her about his pet hamster. The transformation reminded her why their foundation's work was so essential. The media coverage had evolved from initial excitement about the announcement to deeper examination of the foundation's potential impact. Documentary filmmakers requested permission to follow the foundation's development, while academic journals published articles analyzing the innovative aspects of the royal couple's approach. Planning for their first official foundation tour was underway, with requests from communities across the United Kingdom. The logistics were complex, requiring coordination between royal security, local authorities, and the schools and organizations they would visit. However, both Catherine and William insisted that security measures not create barriers between them and the children they hoped to help. The foundation's official logo, designed through a collaboration between professional artists and children from various communities, featured a tree with strong roots and reaching branches, symbolizing both stability and growth. Catherine had been particularly pleased when the young artists explained that they wanted the tree to look welcoming rather than perfect, believing that children would relate better to something that appeared real rather than idealized. As autumn approached and the Foundation's first programs prepared to launch, Catherine and William reflected on how much their lives had changed since that morning, when they first shared their secret over tea. The enormity of what they had undertaken was becoming clear, but so was their conviction that they had chosen the right path. The Foundation was no longer just their dream, but a growing movement that would touch thousands of young lives across the Commonwealth and beyond. The first official Foundation tour began on a misty October morning in Glasgow, Scotland. Catherine and William arrived at Hillview Primary School to find hundreds of children lining the playground, their excitement barely contained despite the early hour. The months of preparation had led to this moment when their vision would finally meet reality. The school had been selected as their first stop because of its innovative approach to student well-being and its diverse community that included children from over 20 different cultural backgrounds. Principal Margaret Stewart had worked tirelessly to prepare her staff and students, but nothing could have prepared her for the genuine warmth and interest that Catherine and William brought to every interaction. Catherine's first activity involved joining a group of 7-year-olds for their morning circle time, where children shared their feelings about the day ahead. She listened intently as young voices described everything from excitement about a math test to worry about a sick grandparent. Her responses were thoughtful and age-appropriate, never dismissive of concerns that might seem small to adults but were enormous to the children experiencing them. William spent the morning with older students, discussing the pressures they faced and the coping strategies they had developed. He was struck by the sophistication of their emotional vocabulary and their willingness to support each other through difficult times. One 12-year-old girl named Aisha spoke eloquently about helping her younger brother adjust to their family's move from Somalia, demonstrating wisdom far beyond her years. The mobile unit had been positioned in the school's courtyard, allowing students and community members to explore the resources that would soon be traveling to schools across Scotland. Children were fascinated by the interactive displays that explained different emotions and provided practical techniques for managing stress and anxiety. Dr. Sarah Chen, now the Foundation's lead child psychologist, conducted demonstration sessions that showed how traditional therapy techniques could be adapted for school settings. Her approach emphasized play-based interventions that felt natural and non-threatening to young participants. Watching her work, Catherine was reminded of why they had been so impressed during her interview. The afternoon brought meetings with parents and community leaders who shared their perspectives on children's mental health needs. The conversations were frank and sometimes emotional, with adults describing their own struggles to help children cope with everything from family financial stress to social media pressures. One mother, Fatima Hassan, spoke about her teenage son's journey through depression and the lack of culturally sensitive resources available to their family. Her story highlighted the importance of the Foundation's commitment to understanding how mental health challenges affected different communities in unique ways. The Foundation's evening community meeting drew over 200 people to the school's gymnasium. Catherine and William listened as teachers, parents, healthcare workers, and young people themselves described both the challenges they faced and their hopes for the Foundation's impact. Local teacher named David Morrison shared how he had noticed increasing anxiety among his students over the past 5 years, with children as young as 6 expressing worries about academic performance and social acceptance. His observations aligned perfectly with the research that had informed the Foundation's development. The second day of the tour took them to rural communities in the Scottish Highlands, where isolation and limited resources created unique challenges for children's mental health. The mobile unit's importance became immediately apparent as they visited schools that were hours away from the nearest mental health services. At a small primary school in Invergary, Catherine sat with a group of children who described feeling different from their peers in larger towns. The Foundation's digital platforms would be particularly valuable for these students, providing connections to other young people facing similar challenges and access to resources that geography had previously made impossible. William's military background proved valuable as he connected with children from military families stationed in the area. He understood firsthand the challenges of frequent moves, parental deployments, and the unique stressors that came with military life. His conversations with these children were deeply personal and clearly meaningful to everyone involved. The tour's third stop brought them to Edinburgh, where they visited a secondary school known for its diverse student body and innovative mental health programs. The older students asked sophisticated questions about the Foundation's long-term goals and expressed interest in becoming peer mentors for younger children. Catherine was particularly moved by a conversation with 16-year-old James Mackenzie, who had struggled with social anxiety throughout his school years. His description of feeling trapped by his own thoughts resonated with many of the adults present and demonstrated the real impact that early intervention could have on young lives. The Foundation's research partnerships were evident during their Edinburgh visit, with university students presenting preliminary findings from studies examining the effectiveness of different therapeutic approaches with various age groups. The academic component of their work was proving as valuable as the direct services they provided. Media coverage of the tour was extensive but respectful, focusing on the substance of the Foundation's work rather than typical royal tour pageantry. Journalists who accompanied them described being genuinely moved by the interactions they witnessed and the obvious impact the royal couple was having on the communities they visited. International observers had joined the tour, including representatives from Australia's Department of Education and a delegation from Canada's Indigenous Services Department. Their presence reflected the growing global interest in the Foundation's model and its potential for adaptation in other countries. The tour's most powerful moment came during an unscheduled stop at a youth center in Dundee, where William and Catherine encountered a group of teenagers who had been reluctant to participate in traditional mental health programs. These young people had developed their own support network, meeting informally to discuss their challenges and share coping strategies. The organic nature of this peer support group aligned perfectly with the Foundation's philosophy that young people often had valuable insights into what worked for their age group. Catherine and William spent over an hour with these teenagers, learning from their experiences and discussing how the Foundation could support rather than replace the connections they had built. By the end of their Scottish tour, the Foundation had exceeded every metric they had established for measuring success. More importantly, the qualitative feedback from children, families, and communities was overwhelmingly positive. The approach they had developed was clearly meeting real needs in ways that felt authentic and sustainable. The media's response to the tour was unprecedented in its focus on substance over spectacle. Editorial writers praised the royal couple's hands-on approach and genuine engagement with the issues affecting young people. Public opinion polls showed approval, ratings that reflected not just support for the monarchy but genuine appreciation for the Foundation's work. Children. who had met Catherine and William during the tour, began writing letters describing how the experience had affected them. Many reported feeling more hopeful about getting help when they needed it, while others expressed interest in helping other children facing similar challenges. The tour had also generated practical outcomes that would benefit communities long after the royal couple's departure. Local mental health services reported increased funding applications, while schools began implementing programs inspired by what they had observed during the foundation visits. As they returned to London, Catherine and William reflected on how the tour had exceeded their expectations, while confirming their initial instincts about the need for their foundation's work. The children and families they had met would remain in their thoughts and continue to inform the foundation's development. The success of the Scottish tour had created momentum that would carry them through the months ahead as they prepared to expand their work across England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. More importantly, it had demonstrated that their vision for supporting children's mental health was not just noble in intention, but practical and effective in implementation. The Foundation's expansion across England brought unexpected discoveries about the diverse ways children experienced mental health challenges in different communities. Catherine found herself particularly drawn to the stories emerging from inner-city Birmingham, where the Foundation's second major tour would take place in November. The urban environment presented unique opportunities and challenges that differed significantly from the Scottish communities they had visited. Industrial heritage, multicultural neighborhoods, and varying economic circumstances created a complex tapestry of childhood experiences that the Foundation would need to understand and address. Preparation for the Birmingham tour involved extensive consultation with local community leaders, including faith leaders from various religious traditions who played crucial roles in supporting families. Catherine spent hours in meetings with representatives from Sikh, Muslim, Hindu, and Christian communities, learning how cultural values and traditions influenced approaches to mental health. The Foundation's cultural competency training had expanded significantly since the Scottish tour, with staff learning to recognize how mental health symptoms might manifest differently across various cultural contexts. Dr. Sarah Chen had developed specialized protocols for working with children from immigrant families. Recognizing that language barriers and cultural differences could complicate traditional therapeutic approaches, Williams' focus during the preparation phase centered on understanding how economic stress affected children's mental health in urban environments. His meetings with local council members, school administrators, and community workers revealed patterns of anxiety and depression that often stemmed from housing instability, food insecurity, and parents' employment struggles. The Foundation's partnership with Birmingham schools had uncovered concerning trends in academic pressure and social media-related anxiety among students. Teachers reported increasing numbers of children experiencing panic attacks, while school counselors described feeling overwhelmed by the volume of students seeking support. Catherine's pre-tour visit to Handsworth Wood Girls Academy left a lasting impression as she met with a group of 15-year-old students who had formed their own mental health support group. These young women articulated challenges around identity, family expectations, and future aspirations with remarkable clarity and maturity. Zara Patel, a 16-year-old student body president, explained how academic pressure combined with cultural expectations created stress that many adults didn't recognize or understand. Her insights led to modifications in the Foundation's programming to better address the intersection of cultural identity and mental health. The Foundation's digital platforms had evolved significantly since the Scottish tour, incorporating feedback from hundreds of young users who had tested various features and provided suggestions for improvement. The updated apps included multilingual resources and culturally specific content that acknowledged diverse family structures and traditions. Birmingham's tour officially began at Oasis Academy, Harburn, where Catherine and William were greeted by students representing over 30 different cultural backgrounds. The morning assembly featured performances that celebrated the school's diversity, while highlighting themes of resilience, community support, and emotional well-being. Catherine's participation in a year 3 classrooms mindfulness session revealed how effectively young children could learn emotional regulation techniques when presented in age-appropriate ways. The 6- and 7-year-olds guided her through breathing exercises and shared their own strategies for managing difficult feelings. The cultural richness of Birmingham became apparent during William's visit to a community center in Sparkhill, where he joined a group session for children aged 8 to 12. The conversation naturally flowed between English, Urdu, and Arabic as children felt comfortable, expressing themselves in their most familiar languages. One particularly powerful moment occurred when 9-year-old Amara Ibrahim shared her experience of feeling caught between her Somali heritage and British identity, her articulate description of belonging to two worlds while sometimes feeling fully accepted in neither highlighted the unique challenges facing many immigrant children. The Foundation's mobile unit had been adapted for urban use, with technology that could function effectively in high-density areas and programming that addressed the specific stressors of city life. Children were fascinated by interactive displays that helped them identify and name complex emotions they might not have had words for previously. Dr. Chen's work with a group of teenagers from various backgrounds demonstrated the power of peer support in multicultural settings. Watching students from Pakistani, Jamaican, Polish, and Welsh families find common ground in their shared experiences of adolescent challenges reinforced the Foundation's belief in the universal nature of emotional needs. The afternoon brought Catherine and William to a youth center in Aston, where they encountered young people who had been excluded from mainstream education. These teenagers had faced significant challenges but had found stability and support through the center's innovative programs that combined practical skills, training with emotional development. Marcus Williams, an 18-year-old who had struggled with anger management throughout his school years, spoke eloquently about how learning to understand his emotions had changed his entire life trajectory. His story illustrated the transformative potential of appropriate mental health support during crucial developmental periods. The Foundation's evening community meeting in Birmingham attracted over 400 people, representing the city's incredible diversity. Parents, teachers, religious leaders, and young people filled the venue, creating an atmosphere of shared commitment to supporting children's emotional well-being. The multilingual nature of the meeting, with translation services provided in 6 languages, demonstrated the Foundation's commitment to accessibility and inclusion. Community members who might never have attended a traditional royal event felt welcomed and valued as equal participants in important conversations about their children's futures. Catherine was deeply moved by the testimony of Mrs. Rashida Khan, a mother of 4 who described her family's journey through her eldest son's depression. Her story highlighted both the challenges of navigating mental health services as a non-native English speaker and the strength that families could provide when given appropriate resources and support. The tour's second day included visits to schools in more affluent areas of Birmingham, allowing Catherine and William to observe how mental health challenges affected children across different socioeconomic circumstances. The pressures might be different, but the need for support and understanding remained consistent. At King Edward VI High School for Girls, Catherine engaged with students preparing for university admission, who described feeling overwhelmed by academic expectations and uncertainty about their futures. These conversations reinforced the Foundation's recognition that mental health support needed to be available to all children, regardless of their family's economic circumstances. William's visit to a special educational needs school provided insights into how the Foundation's resources could be adapted for children with learning differences and developmental challenges. The creative approaches used by teachers and therapists at the school inspired new ideas for making mental health support accessible to children with varying abilities. The tour's most unexpected highlight came during an impromptu visit to a children's hospital, where Catherine and William met young patients dealing with serious illnesses and their families. The resilience and hope they encountered in these difficult circumstances provided profound perspective on the importance of emotional support during life's most challenging moments. Birmingham's Sikh community had organized a special reception at the local Gurdwara, where Catherine and William learned about traditional approaches to mental wellness and community support. The emphasis on service to others and collective responsibility for community well-being aligned beautifully with the Foundation's values. The tour concluded with a visit to Birmingham Children's Hospital, where medical staff described the growing recognition of mental health's impact on physical healing. The integration of emotional support into medical treatment represented exactly the kind of holistic approach the Foundation hoped to promote throughout the healthcare system. As they departed Birmingham, Catherine and William carried with them dozens of new insights about how cultural diversity enriched approaches to mental health, while also creating unique challenges that required thoughtful, adaptive responses. The city had embraced their Foundation's work while teaching them valuable lessons about the importance of cultural humility and community partnership. The Birmingham tour had generated extensive media coverage that focused particularly on the Foundation's commitment to serving diverse communities. International observers praised the royal couple's efforts to understand and address the specific needs of multicultural populations, with several countries expressing interest in adapting similar approaches for their own diverse communities. Winter brought the Foundation's most ambitious challenge yet, as Catherine and William prepared to expand their work into rural Wales, where geographic isolation and economic hardship created unique barriers to mental health support. The valleys and mountains that defined the Welsh landscape also shaped the communities they would serve, with some villages hours away from the nearest mental health services. The Foundation's advance team had spent weeks in Wales, meeting with local officials, teachers, and healthcare workers to understand the specific challenges facing children in these communities. The findings revealed concerning patterns of youth depression and anxiety that often went unaddressed due to limited resources and the stigma still associated with mental health issues in traditional communities. Catherine was particularly affected by the story of Ceredigion County, where 3 secondary schools served an area larger than some small countries, making it impossible for children to access consistent mental health support. The Foundation's mobile units would be crucial here, but even more important would be training local teachers and community members to provide ongoing support. The Foundation's Welsh tour began in Cardiff, where urban challenges similar to Birmingham mixed with distinctly Welsh cultural elements. Catherine and William started their visit at Ysgol Gyffwn Gymraeg Plasmor, a Welsh medium secondary school, where they encountered students navigating identity questions related to language, culture, and belonging. 16-year-old Ellen Davies spoke passionately about the pressure she felt to maintain Welsh traditions while pursuing dreams that might take her far from her community. Her articulate description of loving her heritage while feeling constrained by expectations resonated with many young people, struggling to balance tradition with personal growth. The linguistic component of mental health support had required extensive preparation, with Foundation materials translated into Welsh and staff trained to work with bilingual children who might express themselves differently in each language. Dr. Sarah Chen had developed protocols recognizing that emotional expression often varied depending on which language children used. William's military background proved particularly relevant during visits to Pembrokeshire, where RAF bases created communities of military families alongside traditional Welsh villages. The children of service members faced unique challenges related to frequent moves and parental deployments, often while trying to integrate into close-knit communities where families had lived for generations. The Foundation's partnership with Welsh schools had revealed concerning trends in rural youth mental health, with isolation and limited opportunities contributing to depression and anxiety among teenagers. Many young people described feeling trapped between loving their communities and yearning for broader horizons. Catherine's visit to a primary school in Snowdonia brought her into contact with children who faced daily challenges that urban peers couldn't imagine. Simple activities like attending after-school programs required lengthy bus journeys, while accessing mental health services often meant missing entire school days for appointments in distant cities. 8-year-old Gareth Williams showed Catherine his drawing of his village, explaining that while he loved the mountains and the sheep, he sometimes felt lonely because there weren't many children his age nearby. His innocent observation highlighted the social isolation that could affect even very young children in rural communities. The Foundation's digital platforms became even more crucial in Welsh rural communities, where technology could bridge geographic gaps and connect children facing similar challenges. However, inconsistent internet access in some areas required innovative solutions, including satellite connections and offline resources that could function without constant connectivity. The mobile units designed for Welsh communities featured weather-resistant construction and equipment that could function in harsh mountain conditions. These vehicles carried not just counseling, resources, but also communication technology that allowed children to connect with peers and professionals beyond their immediate geographic area. Dr. Chen's work with teenagers in Rhonda Sinon-Taff revealed how economic uncertainty affected young people's mental health in post-industrial communities. Many families had experienced generations of economic hardship, creating complex patterns of stress and resilience that required nuanced therapeutic approaches. The Foundation's evening community meeting in Merthyr Tydfil drew over 300 people, filling the local community center with parents, grandparents, teachers, and young people united in their concern for children's well-being. The meeting was conducted bilingually, honoring the Welsh language while ensuring accessibility for all community members. Catherine was moved by the testimony of Gwen Thomas, a grandmother who had raised her grandson after his parents struggled with mental health issues. Her story illustrated both the strength of extended family networks in Welsh communities and the need for support systems that recognize diverse family structures. The tour's most challenging day brought Catherine and William to former mining communities in the South Wales valleys, where economic decline and social problems had created environments where children faced multiple stressors simultaneously. However, they also discovered remarkable resilience and community solidarity that provided natural foundations for mental health support. At Treorchy Comprehensive School, William met with students who had created their own peer support network after recognizing that several classmates were struggling with depression and anxiety. Their initiative demonstrated the natural, helping instincts of young people when given appropriate guidance and resources. The Foundation's collaboration with Welsh Healthcare Services had identified concerning gaps in child and adolescent mental health services, with some areas having no specialized provision within reasonable traveling distance. The partnership aimed to train local healthcare workers to provide initial support while connecting children with specialized services when needed. Catherine's visit to a special needs school in Swansea provided insights into how the Foundation's resources could be adapted for children with developmental disabilities. The creative approaches used by Welsh educators inspired new ideas for making mental health support accessible to children with varying communication abilities. The cultural significance of storytelling in Welsh tradition aligned beautifully with therapeutic approaches that used narrative to help children process difficult experiences. The Foundation began incorporating traditional Welsh stories and folklore into their programming, recognizing the power of cultural connections in healing and growth. The tour included a particularly meaningful visit to Anglesey, where Catherine and William had lived during the early years of their marriage. Their return brought back memories of their own young family life while highlighting how much the Foundation's work meant to them personally. Local communities in Anglesey had organized special receptions that felt more like family gatherings than formal royal events. Children who remembered seeing George and Charlotte as babies expressed excitement about the Foundation's work and eagerness to participate in programs that would help other young people. The Foundation's research partnerships with Welsh universities had begun producing valuable data about rural mental health challenges and effective intervention strategies. The University of Wales had committed to a longitudinal study tracking the impact of early intervention programs on children's long-term well-being. Media coverage of the Welsh tour emphasized the Foundation's commitment to serving all communities, regardless of size or location. Rural communities that had often felt overlooked by national programs expressed gratitude for the attention and resources being directed toward their children's needs. The tour's conclusion in Bangor featured a gathering of young people from across North Wales who had participated in Foundation programs. Their testimonials about increased confidence, better coping strategies, and stronger peer relationships provided powerful evidence of the Foundation's impact. 15-year-old Megan Roberts from Caernarfon spoke about how the Foundation's support had helped her manage anxiety that had previously prevented her from participating in school activities. Her transformation from a withdrawn, worried child to a confident young leader exemplified the potential that appropriate support could unlock. As they departed Wales, Catherine and William reflected on how the tour had deepened their understanding of rural mental health challenges, while revealing the strength and resourcefulness of Welsh communities. The Foundation's work in Wales would require ongoing commitment and creative approaches, but the response they had received confirmed the value of their efforts. The Welsh tour had generated significant political attention, with assembly members praising the Foundation's recognition of rural challenges and commitment to linguistic and cultural sensitivity. The model being developed in Wales would inform similar programs being planned for rural communities across the Commonwealth. Winter was drawing to a close, but the Foundation's work was just beginning to reveal its full potential. Each community they visited taught them something new about the diverse ways children experienced mental health challenges and the varied approaches that could provide effective support. Spring arrived with news that would transform the Foundation's impact far beyond anything Catherine and William had initially imagined. International requests for partnership had grown from interested inquiries to formal government proposals, with 12 Commonwealth nations committing to implementing adapted versions of the Diana Memorial Foundation programs within their own educational and healthcare systems. The success of their work across Scotland, Birmingham, and Wales had created a template that other countries could modify to fit their unique cultural contexts and geographic challenges. Canada's commitment to incorporating Foundation principles into their Indigenous communities' mental health programs represented the kind of meaningful expansion that honored both Diana's legacy and the Foundation's core mission. Catherine spent her mornings now divided between continuing domestic programs and coordinating with international partners who were eager to learn from the Foundation's experiences. Video conferences with educators from Australia, New Zealand, and Jamaica had become regular features of her schedule, each revealing new perspectives on children's mental health needs. The Foundation's data was beginning to tell a remarkable story of transformation. Schools that had implemented comprehensive mental health programs reported significant decreases in behavioral problems, improvements in academic performance, and increases in student engagement. More importantly, children themselves reported feeling safer, more supported, and better equipped to handle life's challenges. Dr. Sarah Chen had compiled preliminary research findings that would be presented at an international conference on child mental health in London. The data showed not just statistical improvements but qualitative changes in how children understood and managed their emotional lives. Teachers reported that students were more likely to seek help when struggling and more willing to support peers facing difficulties. The Foundation's mobile units had logged thousands of miles across the United Kingdom, reaching communities that had never before had access to specialized mental health resources. The vehicles had become familiar sights in rural villages and urban neighborhoods alike, symbols of hope and support that children eagerly anticipated. William's focus had shifted toward developing sustainable funding models that would ensure the Foundation's work could continue indefinitely. Corporate partnerships with technology companies, healthcare organizations, and educational publishers had created revenue streams that supported ongoing operations while maintaining the Foundation's independence and mission focus. The most significant development came when the European Union expressed interest in adopting Foundation principles as part of a continent-wide initiative to address rising rates of anxiety and depression among young people. The proposal would create a network of support systems modeled on the Diana Memorial Foundation's approach, reaching millions of children across dozens of countries. Catherine's response to the EU proposal was characteristically thoughtful, expressing excitement about the potential impact while insisting that any expansion maintain the personal, community-focused approach that had made their work successful. She had learned through months of hands-on experience that effective mental health support required genuine human connections that couldn't be scaled up without careful attention to maintaining quality and authenticity. The Foundation's anniversary celebration in early summer brought together hundreds of children, families, and professionals who had participated in programs throughout the year. The event, held in the gardens of Kensington Palace, felt more like a family reunion than a formal commemoration, with young people sharing stories of growth and transformation. 12-year-old Sophie Henderson from Glasgow spoke about how the Foundation's support had helped her manage anxiety that had prevented her from participating in school activities. Her confidence in addressing the gathered crowd demonstrated the kind of personal growth that statistics could never fully capture. The Foundation's peer mentorship program had exceeded all expectations, with older students taking active roles in supporting younger children facing similar challenges. These relationships often continued beyond formal program participation, creating lasting networks of support that strengthened entire school communities. Catherine and William had insisted that their own children participate in foundation activities appropriate for their ages, believing that understanding mental health and emotional well-being should be part of every child's education. George, Charlotte, and Louis had attended several community events, their natural ease with other children helping to create welcoming environments for families who might have felt intimidated by royal involvement. The Foundation's digital platforms had evolved into comprehensive resources that children, parents, and professionals accessed daily. The interactive features allowed young people to track their emotional progress, connect with peers facing similar challenges, and access professional support when needed. Usage data showed that children were most active on the platforms during evening hours and weekends, suggesting they were finding support during times when traditional services weren't available. International media attention had focused particularly on the Foundation's approach to cultural sensitivity and community partnership. Unlike traditional top-down charitable initiatives, the Diana Memorial Foundation had consistently prioritized listening to communities and adapting programs to meet local needs and preferences. The most moving testament to the Foundation's impact came through letters from children who had participated in early programs. Many wrote about specific moments when Foundation support had made crucial differences in their lives, from helping them navigate friendship difficulties to providing resources during family crises. One letter that particularly affected Catherine came from 14-year-old James Campbell in Edinburgh, who wrote about how Foundation counseling had helped him process his father's deployment to a peacekeeping mission. James's description of learning to manage worry while maintaining pride in his father's service illustrated the complex emotional challenges that military children faced and the sophisticated support they deserved. The Foundation's research partnerships had produced findings that were reshaping how professionals approached child mental health. The importance of peer relationships, the effectiveness of creative therapies, and the need for culturally responsive programming had all been validated through rigorous academic study. Dr. Chen's presentation at the international conference received standing ovations from delegates representing over 40 countries. Her findings about the connection between early mental health intervention and long-term life outcomes provided compelling evidence for investment in children's emotional well-being as both a moral imperative and an economic necessity. As summer progressed, Catherine and William reflected on how profoundly the Foundation had changed, not just the lives of the children they served, but their own understanding of their roles as future monarchs. The hands-on nature of their work had provided insights into contemporary challenges facing families that would inform their approach to royal duties for decades to come. The Foundation's success had created expectations for continued expansion and innovation that both excited and humbled its founders. Catherine often remarked that every solved problem revealed new challenges, but this reality energized rather than discouraged her. The work had become more than a charitable initiative. It had become a calling that would define their life's work. The anniversary celebration concluded with the announcement of plans for a permanent Diana Memorial Center for Children's Mental Health, to be built adjacent to Kensington Palace. The center would serve as both a working facility providing direct services to local children and a training center for professionals from around the world who wanted to learn Foundation approaches. As autumn approached, bringing the first anniversary of their initial announcement, Catherine and William prepared for the Foundation's next phase of development. The success of their first year had proven that their vision was not just noble, but practical, not just needed but welcomed by communities across the United Kingdom and beyond. The Diana Memorial Foundation had become exactly what they had hoped, a lasting tribute to William's mother that honored her memory through meaningful action, a practical resource that addressed urgent contemporary needs, and a model that demonstrated how traditional institutions could evolve to serve modern challenges. Most importantly, it had become a source of hope for thousands of children who now knew that their emotional well-being mattered, that support was available when they needed it, and that the future held possibilities for growth, healing, and happiness. In changing young lives across the Commonwealth, Catherine and William had discovered that they had changed their own lives as well, finding purpose and meaning that would guide them through whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead. The heartwarming news that had delighted the nation 12 months earlier had evolved into something even more significant, a permanent legacy of compassion, innovation, and hope that would continue touching lives for generations to come.